Welcome back to Tammy Tuesdays podcast. We're happy you're here with us today. This is the podcast about life, love, and purpose. I'm very excited to introduce our guest today. She's a great friend of mine. I'm going to read her bio so you have a little bit of background before we dive into our conversation, which is going to be really great. So this is Gellyahnah Aakhen, born with intuitive talents. Gellyahnah always felt different from everyone and from a very young age had a strong fascination with mysticism. Through her adulthood as an entrepreneur and after becoming a mother to her daughter and then her marriage ending at the end of 2016, she began to discover more deeply what she came here to do, and her spiritual journey began to unfold. Decoding and understanding her own soul contract, what her soul signed up for in this life, played such an instrumental part in her own healing and awakening. And that she decided to become a soul contract practitioner to help others heal and remember their purpose in this incarnation. How does she do this? By deriving your soul purpose from the sound frequencies of your birth name. So, how does that sum it up a little bit?
It sums it up. Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah, I know there's a lot to this. So, thank you for being here. I'm really excited that you're here.
I'm excited to be here.
Good. You were, and I've told you this, you have been an instrumental part to the beginning of my spiritual awakening. And I'm so grateful to you for that. And I'm just going to give a little bit of background because what I saw happen with you is really what inspired me to sort of step into what I'm now doing. So I would watch Gellyahnah on social media, which we had met through her other business. And we'll talk about that a little bit too, because she used to be a badass businesswoman. I mean, she really was. She was like me. She was a go-getter, entrepreneur, pretty hardcore and very successful. And I really respected that when I first met you. We met through a mutual friend years ago. And as I saw this transition happening through her social media posts, which were becoming very mysterious and beautiful, and the messages behind them were very inspiring, and it was very different from what I had seen before. And so that's why I was like, what is going on over here? I was watching this beautiful butterfly just start to blossom. And so I finally reached out and I said, what is going on? I need to sit with you. I need to talk to you. I need to understand this because I have a feeling that what I'm seeing in you is what's happening with me, and I have no idea what to do about it. And so she gracefully accepted my invitation, probably wondering, what the heck does she want?
I wasn't sure because I was, like you said, we met from the other business. And so I was like, I don't know what we're going to talk about.
I know. Well, the fact that you were open was huge for me because same with me. When people would ask me to get together, I really never knew what it was about too, because I had the other business, that's what I was doing. And so it was like, I never know what was coming of these conversations, but I was very excited to hear all about your journey. And that's when you started to explain to me what had gone on. So I'm going to let you tell everybody sort of what that looked like, how it's transitioned for you, where you are now. It'll be very conversational, but let's just start with kind of what you explained to me when I said, what's going on?
You mean with the transition?
Yes.
Well, gosh, I don't even know. God, it was a
long time. It was years ago.
A long time ago. And that was a long conversation. But
to put it in perspective, it was probably about 3 years ago, I would say ish.
Yeah. So what was going on with me? I mean, I think that was part of the summation of the bio. I mean, I was really stepping into who I am, because I've always been this way. Mm-hmm. So, but I don't think most kids growing up say, oh, I'm going to be, an intuitive reader or anything like that when they're growing up. And I thought everybody was like me. I didn't realize that people couldn't feel energy or read energy. And I didn't know that's what I was doing. I just knew things.
Right.
And I saw things. And I assumed most people were like me. And I think it wasn't until high school that I was like, I think people don't see what I see or don't feel what I feel. And I remember actually the distinct moment one of my friends told me she had a crush on this guy in high school. And I looked at her like she had 10 heads. I'm like, him? Like, he's a black hole of energy. Like, what would you possibly find attractive about him. And she, of course, looked at me like I had 10 heads, she's like, black hole of energy. What does that mean? And I'm like, what do you mean? What do I mean? Like, and it was just kind of like a whatever exchange. But I sat back and I'm like, seriously, she doesn't feel this guy's energy the way that I do.
Mm-hmm.
And that was almost this turning point for me where I was like, I think I feel and see things that other people don't. So, but again, I've always been this way. So in the other company that I had, and this was a big networking company, I was working with people. So I feel like in many ways, I was doing my intuitive work. I was just doing it sort of covertly. And sometimes I realized it and sometimes I didn't. But in many ways, what I'm doing now is actually very similar to what I was doing then, as far as the impact that I'm actually making for people, right? If we get to the core of it, not the label we put on the business, but the core of what it is that I do. And it's the impact. It's moving them forward. It's helping them see things that maybe they don't see because I can't see it in the energy.
Mm-hmm.
So I think when we had coffee around that time, I think that's what was happening.
Yeah. Yeah. It was, well, and I remember you describing it like, and we've talked about this since, but how you, like you said, you've always been doing this. And this is what is a common thread when people begin to wake up and step into what they're meant to do is they say, oh my gosh, when you start to realize it, you're like, I was already doing this and I just didn't know it. It looked different, of course, but it felt the same because it was truly what your soul's calling was saying, it's time to do this. Let's do this. So you were already part of it. You were already participating. It just looked very different. And for the business that you had before, you all should understand, she built a remarkable business around networking and it grew very, very large, very quickly, and people were gravitated to it. And it was clearly very energetic work because it was pulling people.
Yeah.
And nothing's changed because you're now pulling people, but for a different purpose, for something that's different for them. This was a networking connection type thing. And I don't want to misdescribe it, but from what I understood, it was really a networking opportunity for people to kind of come out of their shell and get together and network and talk about things that for their business and make connections. And that's really what you did. And you were on stages and you had how many people in all these events? You had huge events.
Yeah, 1,500 to 2,000 per event.
Yeah, huge events. Yeah. Again, a huge energy pull, which is really cool.
It really was. And, I tell you what's interesting to sort of dive right into the soul contract thing. So for me and my soul, and we'll discuss more what this is, but within my soul contract, one of my karmic aspects that I brought into this life to work through is this 7-7 frequency. And the 7-7 is all about bringing people together, connecting people, helping them heal, helping them make decisions. And this is actually the karma that I came into this lifetime to transmute. So meaning I started out in the negative aspect, because karma is always, this is our negative patterns. This is where, we're always attracting, the same person and just in a different relationship, and they're abusing us or misusing us, whatever.
Different storyline.
Right. And so for me, it was about heartache with people and learning how to be authentic. There's this whole theme to it, but the core aspect of this frequency is bringing people together for the purpose of their healing, their advancement, like helping them make decisions. And so unknowingly to me, because I launched that business when I was 27, I was not doing this work at 27,
right.
This particular soul contract work.
At least you didn't realize it.
Right, yeah. Well, not in this methodology, right? Let's put it that way. And so I didn't know, but that business was actually part of me working through my karma.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so I'm just tying it in for you, right? Because nothing's really
nothing's by accident. No, nothing's by accident. It's all very coordinated so beautifully, right? And how we choose to step into it and work through it. Yeah. Okay, let's talk about that for a second, because so many people, and as I've understood it, karmic energy is like you described. It's we come here, we live a life, and there's a lot of things that we carry over and over and over with the same people, with the same message, with the same things that we need to work through. And we all have it. As we incarnate, the more we incarnate, the more stuff comes, the more experiences we have that create these karmic energies that we work through. So in the soul contract work, talk about what exactly, for people that don't understand, what is a soul contract? What does that look like? How does that play with karmic energy? Just kind of give a big picture of it. Then we can dive into more detail.
Yeah. So when I use the word soul contract, two things will pop up in people's heads. The first type of soul contract that we have is the soul contract that we have with others, right? So you have a soul contract with your parents, your relationships, your children. You could have a soul contract. I mean, I talk about this. You can have the soul contract with a complete stranger that just happened to be on the corner and like pull you back so a car doesn't hit you, right? I mean, we have these various soul contracts with different souls. And people always say to me, well, how do I know who I have a soul contract with?
Well, and back up a little bit.
Yeah.
So, because this was a big part of when I sat with you and I was like, okay, I'm confused. I don't know what to do. I feel like I'm getting connections with people that have passed on in my family and people that I clearly had contracts with. And the first book you told me to read was Journey of Souls.
Yes.
And that was a perfect book for me at the time because I then understood just on the other side. And when I say on the other side, I mean in the afterlife, when we're between lives, right? Because we go back to a place and then we come back and we incarnate again into another set of things that we're doing, another life, another screenplay, really, if you will.
Yeah.
And so the reason I bring that up is because when you cross over and when you're between each life, in between incarnations, that's when these are set up. So describe that a little bit so they can understand the bigger picture of where it comes from and what it means, if you can.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I love that you mentioned that book because I'm actually going to use a visual from that book when it comes to soul contract. So before your soul reincarnates, if you can imagine, like, again, this is the visual from the book, the soul is in this huge auditorium, right, with like thousands of souls. And as the soul is planning its life, is going through the next, what the incarnation is going to look like, each soul in this auditorium has a role. And there's literally going to be thousands because almost every single interaction you have in any given life has some significance to it. Now, I will say not every single interaction you have is pre-planned either because we have free will.
Right.
So some things happen out of that context, but like I'll take people back all the way to high school, people that are not even significant in your life anymore that you wouldn't even remember until you maybe opened up your yearbook. But you have soul contracts with those people. You could have a soul contract with the other woman if that was a scenario in somebody's life. Why? Because maybe she came into your life to help you understand your worth because maybe you had to finally stand up for yourself and leave that relationship. Right. So,
right.
And I find that, going a little bit deeper into this, but the souls that will hurt us the most are usually the ones committed to our growth. Again, this is within a soul contract scenario. This isn't, in the human free will scenario where somebody does something out of context, which also happens.
Sure. So, okay. So then when you're there, before you come, you've arranged this and you have the things that you are planning. And again, even some of those plans get derailed because free will exists. So they don't always play out, even though you might plan them to do that with all these other souls. So once you're here, I love the way, and I know that a lot of people gravitate to you because it's all about relationships and these roles that these relationships play in your life and how they play out and what they mean and why they're happening. Because so many people are so confused, whether it's your parents, which so many of us have issues with our parents. I mean, it's just a fact of life. And these ironically are things that we've planned.
Yes.
Especially with our parents, because we knew exactly what we were coming into. And that was the role we decided to play together in this life. And that's what it was going to look like. But in love relationships too, because so many factors come into play when you meet somebody. And it's funny, I recently watched Sleepless in Seattle, and I haven't seen it in years. And it was interesting. I was like, oh, this is perfect. I'm glad I'm watching this because it kind of plays into what we're talking about here, which is people gravitate to certain people. And there's reasons for that. It's reasons that we in a human body with an ego don't understand, but they really are things that we've planned in such a way. And that's why you can't even explain it. Why am I so drawn to this person? And it's not necessarily a romantic situation. It could be anything. It could be a friend. It could be whatever it is, but there's some pull to it. Or there's some adversity. Like, they do something to hurt you, but yet you still are like, oh my gosh, but I still, even though they're hurting me so bad, I keep going back to them. So explain that a little bit and what's going on and the growth behind it.
Well, it's a lot of kind of what you just said. The souls have these pre-planned interactions. And I will say all soul contracts are made out of love, because souls are very loving, energetic beings, things, and they love each other unconditionally. So when two souls come together to plan out a human experience, it's always from the perspective of love.
And there's a reason to do it, for growth.
Growth, evolution. The souls descend in order to ascend, right? So they come down to earth in order to actually go up different levels in the astral. So I often get asked, well, what do souls do when they're not in the body? They're studying, because you almost can think of it as school. Like they want to go up the next level and the next level and the next level. And so, you can read something in a book forever, but it's such a different experience when you go and experience it. So it's a very similar concept where the souls want to come down here and experience. And if somebody is here to learn how to heal their heart, well, somebody has to come in and hurt their heart. You can't just come in and have the most beautiful, unconditional everything in this human experience and then know how to heal your heart. Like, that just doesn't make sense, right? So then there could be a contract between two souls made out of love. All right, we're going to get in this relationship, and you're going to betray me, and things of that nature. Now, again, I say these things with a little bit of hesitation, because yes, that's how it works, but not always. So again, I always want to say everything is a possibility of, and I always encourage everybody to question everything, including me.
Yeah.
Right? Because even in my own evolution, the more I study, the deeper I go into these subjects, it's like this feeling of the more I know, the more I don't know.
Right.
Right? Because it's such a deep and vast thing that we're studying. And in our human bodies and minds, we're not actually supposed to know everything.
Right. And that's tough for people.
Yes.
We want to know everything.
Yes.
Yet we never will.
And that's a good thing. Like, who really wants to know everything? I just posted a video on Instagram, a reel talking about why we don't remember our past lives. And like, think about it. If you remembered all your past lives, and some people have thousands, and many of them were brutal. We have hard enough memories from one lifetime.
Was that the one with Dolores Cannon?
Yes, that was.
Yeah. Okay. I saw that.
Yeah.
So I want to talk about Dolores Cannon for a second, because she's fascinating.
Yes.
She's no longer with us in this life, but she, for anybody that know her, look her up. She's got some really fascinating experiences. She's actually similar to The Journey of Souls. Is it John Newman?
Michael Newton.
Michael Newton. Sorry, I got the author's name mixed up. But they were hypnotherapists that started to go deeper into people's lives, so much that for Michael Newton, it was about going into between lives. And so when you told me to read that book, that's why it was so fascinating, because it was like, oh my gosh, there's a whole other way to look at this, which again, when you're first waking up, it's a lot and you can't know it all, but it opens up new ideas and things that you can sort of get a grip on, or start to anyway, as part of your journey. Dolores Cannon is similar that way too, because she was also a hypnotherapist, and she would go into past lives, not necessarily between lives, that also, but more into past lives, which again is where a lot of this karmic energy lives and the roles that we play. And she describes it so fascinating about what it all looks like. But you use her a lot. How did you, there's so much I want to ask. Seriously, because I actually have been recently diving into some of her stuff more than I have before. And there's so many things that she talks about. One of the things that I had watched recently was about the earth raising its vibration and sending in these 3 waves.
Yes.
I want to talk about that because I found it fascinating. And this is a big concept for people that are new to understanding this, but I think it's important because there's other forces that we don't understand, because not everybody does incarnate over and over and over again. And they come here for different reasons to this place that we call Earth, because Earth is its own being. It has its own life of its own. And we just live on it.
Yeah.
Which is another wild concept that we're not talking about today specifically. But Dolores Cannon talks about these 3 waves. Can you talk about that a little bit and how you understand it? Because I found it very interesting.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, I mean, I'm not like a supreme expert on these waves, but there's basically the 3 waves of volunteers that she talks about. And essentially, like, to sum it up, because we could talk about that for hours too, right? But to sum it up, Earth is meant to be going through this big ascension process, which it is. We're all feeling it. I mean,
everybody says it.
Yeah.
Even if you're not in this, everybody says that.
Yeah. Because the veil is getting thinner. People are more sensitive. Everybody's starting to feel things. Mm-hmm. And there were these volunteers. And who are the volunteers? I mean, typically they're beings from higher dimensions, maybe souls from different universes. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's a whole slew of where these volunteers are coming from, and they're coming in to help raise the vibration of Earth. And oftentimes when I'm looking at somebody's soul contract.
Have you come across this?
Oh, all the time.
Okay.
All the time. I can see, well, again, this is a possibility of,
right?
I mean,
of course. There's no exact.
Right. There's, so when I see particular frequencies in somebody's chart, the 8s or the 5s, the 5s oftentimes are possibly star seeds. This is where their soul usually incarnates on other planets. The 8s are very high frequency souls that don't incarnate on Earth very often. And when they do, they feel like they don't belong at all. They feel so out of place. So they all volunteer to come here because they're like, Earth is in trouble. We need to go give them love. And they come here and they're like, what was I thinking? This place is cold. Everybody is mean. I don't like it here. I want to go home.
Because they don't have karmic energy either. They're not necessarily coming here with the same karma as the people that keep coming back and back and back
They're
again.
not necessarily coming in with the same karma, but they're programmed to have the same karmic patterns.
Yes, because they've been implanted with memories that help that, right?
So that's part of Dolores. Okay, so this is depending how deep down Dolores rabbit hole you want to go, because this is something that she talks about.
Right.
I will say Dolores, even in her own evolution, would sometimes circle back to the things that she said, and she would say, I have more information, and let's now sort of shed more light on it. Since Dolores is no longer here with us, even everything she says we have to take with a grain of salt, because there could have been a lot more evolution that she's now not adding to.
Right.
And I will tell you, Dolores, I love Dolores Cannon. I do use a lot of her stuff, but she's very karma heavy. Mm-hmm. Right. And so this is where it's good to get information from different teachers that you trust and respect. And then you kind of have to take a step back and say, where are we now in the process of everything, and how does everything feel? Because I've gotten a number of times signs from my spiritual team, take a look at what Dolores is talking about, because what karma does is it brings up fear in people.
Right.
And when I do my readings and when I talk about karma, I always try not to do it from the point of fear, because that's the initial human reaction.
It is. People put the word fear tied to karma. That's for sure.
Yes. And that's not actually what karma is.
Yeah.
It's not fear.
Mm-hmm. I know. It's not. It's not at all, actually. It's all love.
Right.
Yeah, I agree with you. Okay, I want to back up a little bit because we got a little deep there for a second, which is probably a little confusing.
Sorry,
to some people.
not sorry. Yes, I get what we
deep. Me too.
I
I went right into it. So I want to back up a little bit because I want you to explain what the frequencies in your birth name, how those numbers work, how you pull together a chart based on somebody's birth name. Because you've done it with me. I loved it when you did that with me. I got so much information. In fact, you and I are very similar on our path, which is really interesting. Which is, I'm sure, why I was drawn to you. So talk about what that looks like, how it works, so people can understand what a chart reading of their name looks like.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is, okay, so that's what we started with. What is a soul contract? So we covered what the first one is. So the soul contracts that I actually look at is the soul contract that you put together in place before you incarnated into this life with yourself.
Okay.
Like essentially, what is the promise you're making to source? Because when you're creating your life, you're really co-creating with source, with your guides. There's an energetic promise. Why are you coming into this lifetime? That's the soul contract I look at. Essentially, why are you here?
And that is the premise of this entire podcast. This is the continual question. So that's why we're talking about this, because why are we here? Okay.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. So the process that I do is I work with sound frequencies. And why with sound frequencies? Because sound is very powerful when it comes to creating our reality. We get this information from different sacred texts. Even if we take the Bible, the Torah, like in the beginning, there's literally nothing until God starts to speak the universe and everything into existence, right? So of all the ways God could create, we're using sound. In the Hinduism tradition, we have the Om sound, which is the sound of creation. And that's that symbol we see in all the yoga gear, right? So from different traditions and religions and cultures, we essentially hear and see that sound is very creative. So what I'm doing is I'm taking the person's birth name on their birth certificate. This is the sound frequency that their soul came in with into this lifetime.
It's like their fingerprint.
It's like their fingerprint, yeah. And I literally decode what the soul pre-planned. And when I decode it into the sound frequencies, I can see the karma that they brought in, their talents, their goals, and their soul destiny. So ultimately, what is the core purpose for this incarnation?
Okay. So, because when you look at it, for somebody like that doesn't do this all the time, you look at these numbers, what do these mean? Because there's different sections in the chart that you pull out. Explain those a little bit. Because I even forget what they're called.
Right. Well, so the karma, the talents, the goals, and the soul purpose.
Okay. And the soul purpose is right in the center.
Yes.
And then it kind of goes, it's like a star shape. It's like
it's a Star of David shape.
Yes.
It's a Merkaba.
Exactly.
And the Merkaba is a sacred geometry symbol. It's a 2D version of a tetrahedron.
Yes. Okay. Because some people do or do not know that, but
yes.
But it is really cool. And then there's numbers that tie to it, which are the frequencies that come from the letters and the sounds of your name. So as you break this down into these different sections of your life, how do you pull these numbers out of the frequencies? Is it based on the order of the letters in your name? How does that work? Like, how do you break it up, put in these sections? I'm just curious.
There is a method to it. It would be difficult to explain without showing it, but yes, like I put one number here and then the next number below it. And then
there's an order to it.
There's an order to it. And I move it around the star and then I add it up.
Right. Where did you learn that?
I learned it from my teacher. Yeah, so his name is Nicholas, and he learned it from a guy named Frank Alper, and my teacher, Nicholas David. And he learned it from Frank Alper. Frank channeled this work in the 80s. However, this is ancient work that has been done in ancient times. And I can tell you when I came across it in this lifetime, it was like reignited in me. Like I've done this. I speak this language. It came so easy. I read the book and I started doing readings before I even took any classes with him.
Right. You were just drawn to it because you knew it.
I was beyond drawn to it. It was a watershed moment in my life where the moment I saw this work, every cell in my body was on fire. It was like this physical experience that's hard to even
I have
explain.
Goosebumps right now as you say that. Yeah.
Yeah. And it was just this, like reigniting it. But anyway, so I read his book. I took the classes with him, and yeah, Frank. I'm sorry, telling you about Frank. So even though Frank channeled this in the 80s, this work actually dates back to something called the Sefer Yetzirah, which is the book of formation, the book of creation. It's a very sacred text that they believe was written in the 1st century, but they don't know by whom. But the book exists, and in very detailed ways, it explains how the world was created through sound, and it uses 22 sound frequencies.
Wow.
And these are the like ancient Hebrew sound frequencies. And each one has a definition, like what came with this sound and what came with that sound. And so these are the core foundational principles that we use in this work that Frank channeled in, put together, because he brought in the methodology of how we do the decoding. So there you go. That's more detail.
Well, that makes sense, because honestly, most things that come from divine are channeled. I mean, you have to channel them in, because again, as people and humans in these bodies, we can't comprehend what that means, because we're, when we come here, we have amnesia and don't remember anything from where we came. We don't remember what it all means, and we're not meant to. That's the whole design. We're supposed to forget. We're supposed to remember things as we go on this walk and learn the things we learn in this life that we've incarnated into.
Right.
So going back to soul contracts. So as you break down somebody's chart, how do soul contracts come into play with that? Can you see that as you play this out through sound frequencies? How do those play together?
So when I break down the name, how do I, okay. So when I break down the name and I, again, put it around the chart, essentially within the chart, I'm going to see, again, the karmic points, the talent points. And so depending on the frequency that's sitting, for instance, in your karma point. So as I was saying earlier, I have a 7/7 physical karma. That's all about heartache. So my entire life, majority of my life was heartache over and over and over. Like every form of heartache you can imagine from every single relationship in my life. And it was just this pattern and this theme. And it was just, I'm like, this, it gets to the point where, and I'm sure a lot of people have experienced this, they're like, okay, I'm a good person. Like, seriously, why does this keep happening to me?
What's going on?
Yeah. And a lot of people will say, I must have done something in a previous life to deserve this. And that's the karma I don't like. That's
Fear-based.
Yeah, it's fear-based and it's victim mode. Like I get a lot of people in my Instagram DM box, like just such victims. And listen, I get it. I've been there, but no one's a victim.
Right.
Truly, no one's a victim. So, so for me, again, when I read my own chart, all of a sudden my entire life made sense. I understood why this pattern kept happening, because that was the karma I needed to heal through, right? Because this is the next question people ask me. Well, okay, I have this karma. What do I do with it? Am I meant to suffer with it forever? Another one of my, like, such a pet peeve question, like, I am doomed forever. This is my karma.
No.
But you are meant to transmute it and heal through it.
Heal. You're meant to heal. That's why we came here, is to heal.
Yes.
Continue to heal.
Yeah, we came here to turn things around. Because what is karma? Karma is bound. We said what karma is not. Let's define what karma is. Karma is cause and effect. You can have good karma.
Sure.
Like the big tote I carry around says good karma all over it. Like it's karma, meaning good and bad, and it's cause and effect. So you can have good karma, you can have bad karma. All it is it's about a rebalancing. So if you maybe in a past life hurt somebody, and now in this life, the soul says, okay, in this lifetime, I'll hurt you because we need to rebalance it. You'll experience the heartache. I'll say, okay, great, we'll rebalance it. We'll heal out of it. We'll move on. Then we never have to have this experience. That's what the souls say. The humans, of course, come down here and have a very different
pity party about it.
Yeah, very different interaction. But when you can heal out of your karma, and we have different karmas, because you're going to have karmic points with other people. And this is, your soul contract with another person. And then you're going to have karmic points with yourself. This is personal karma. And then you have the collective karma.
Explain those a little bit. Dive into that a little bit.
So, okay, so your personal one is the most obvious. Like this is your own cause and effect through past lifetimes. And really what are past lives? Because actually it's all existing at once. It's all happening at once.
Right.
But
that's a hard concept for people to understand, but it's true. There's a million scenarios happening all at the same time.
Yep. So that's our personal karma. And then we have karma with other people. So this is, again, the soul contracts that we started off talking about, where, we have karmic soulmates. That's what I call them. And a karmic soulmate is somebody that could be one of your soulmates. And because we all have multiple. Now
to talk about that for a second, because some people have a traditional way of thinking about it's my soulmate. And you think there's just one and you think it's the one and that's all there is.
Yeah.
That's not necessarily the case.
No.
So explain that a little bit for people.
Yeah. Thank you. I was just about to say, okay, footnote. We need to just explain
talk about it.
Soul contract or soulmates. So we all have multiple soulmates. Now, I will say there usually is that one divine soulmate that this is like what the fairy tale sort of books talk about. They're the one. There really is the one.
Okay.
But I will tell you most
And it's
people,
romantic?
Yes.
Okay.
It's romantic. Yes, but most people do not meet the one soulmate because we're so lost in our society. People get married and get into relationships for the wrong reasons, out of fear, out of loneliness, out of financial reasons. These are probably the karmic soulmates. And it's not wrong. It's not a bad thing that you maybe chose to be in a relationship with somebody, like with one of your other soulmates. If that happens, the universe, God, source, creator will protect that relationship. Like it might be a little bit more difficult to be in that relationship because you're not as similar, right? Because that you and your divine soulmate are very similar and you have a very divine mission and purpose together.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so that's one of the biggest differences between a divine soulmate and another soulmate that you could have
Just part of your story,
part
like
of your
karmic soulmate. Is that a good name to call it or no?
Well, not all of them are karmic. I mean, yes, but remember, some karma can be good.
Right.
So again, I don't want to say karmic always means bad.
Right.
So
Well, let's just say that right now.
Yeah.
When we say the word karma here, we're not saying that it's a bad or good thing. It just is.
Right.
It just is. It's not good or bad.
Yeah. So the divine soulmates, they everybody gets one. Okay, because this is another pity party. I get women coming to me, I think I'm destined to be alone. I don't think I came here with a soulmate. I'm like, okay, you and every other woman that has come. Yes, no, I don't think so. But again, I say this sarcastically, but.
Well, you've lived through some of it, so you understand it a little deeper
I've
for
lived
yourself.
through all of it.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
This is why they come to me, because I've lived through all of it and I can help them understand.
Right.
But the divine soulmate. Sorry, I totally lost my train of thought. What was I saying about them?
Well, we were talking about the divine soulmate and how some people most people don't find
everybody
them.
has one.
Yes.
Okay, everybody has one. So in the Kabbalah, we are told, and the Kabbalah, for those that don't know, this is the part of Jewish mysticism, spiritual tradition. This is not your traditional Jewish thing, but within the Kabbalah, we're told that 40 days before you are conceived in your mother's womb, a divine voice proclaims who your divine soulmate, your besheret is the word they use, is going to be in this lifetime. Everybody gets one. However, this is not a prophecy. It's not saying, and you will meet them.
Okay.
It's saying you have one.
Wait, let me ask you this. When this happens, is it the one that's always through time, or is it the one for this lifetime?
The way that I understand is the one for this lifetime.
Okay.
Because you may have different missions in each lifetime. Mm-hmm. And so you will get paired up with
your divine soulmate each time.
With a different divine soulmate for each lifetime.
Okay.
The way I understand it. Again, question everything. This is how I understand it today.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Exactly. Well, so that's the thing. And I want to stop you for a second because you touched on this before. This is so important to people listening. Nothing is definite, and it's not meant to be. This is how Gellyahnah, you, the listener, anyone interprets what they're receiving and how they understand this as we live in these bodies on this earth. It's impossible, and it's not intended for us to know everything. And that's okay. This is for you to live, feel, and love through. You cannot know it all, and you're not supposed to know it all, and nobody's ahead of anybody else. We're all in this together. So I just want to say that because I know that to be true. There is no finish line. It's a journey for eternity in this life and every life you live. So just know that you're never going to know it all. So whatever you get out of this is what you get out of this. Just feel through it for yourself. It's different for everyone. So I just wanted to say that because I know that's true.
Yeah.
Okay. So, keep going on the divine soulmate, because the divine soulmate is what you understand is that they receive this name in the womb for the life that they're about to incarnate into. And most people don't find them.
Correct.
Okay. And the reason for that is why, you think?
Because as a society, we're so disconnected from ourselves, from source, the creator. I mean, we've lost our connection to spirituality. And so, not to get all preachy on people, but it is what it is, because we're so disconnected as a society. And when you're disconnected, you're doing things the manual way. And the manual way is getting on dating apps. The manual way is going out to the bars, trying to meet people. That's a very manual way. You know, people say, I'm going to manifest. Sure, you can manifest another relationship, but when it's your divine soulmate, you can't manifest them. They're already made for you. But what you can do is be on the right path in life to meet them.
That's a really interesting point. And this is something that my husband, bless him, has said forever. And he teaches our boys this. He says, look, be the best you. That's when you find your mate. You're never going to find your mate by trying to be the best for anyone or anything else. The only thing you can do is be the best you. And that's when they appear. That's when suddenly, because I mean, it's so funny. So many people, especially men, typically more than women, say, oh, I'm going to be a bachelor forever. I'm never going to get married. And because they're, I think, probably, and a lot of times afraid of it. But either way, when they do, they just kind of give in. Actually, that was on the Sleepless in Seattle. There was a scene where Meg Ryan goes to her brother and she says, I'm freaking out here. I need some help. What, did you have cold feet? Were you afraid? He said, no. Well, basically, she said we had to break up or get married. That's a lot of what happens in people in relationships. Like you said, we're so clouded by society and what we're supposed to be doing, getting married, having babies. This is the way. Well, really, it's not. It's, again, back to self-love, which is all I ever try to promote, which I'm trying to learn for myself, is the more you're pouring into yourself and receiving this for yourself, becoming the best version of yourself, that's when these beautiful relationships appear. I mean, the other person has to be there too.
Yeah.
It's not just you. You can't just be it and they appear. You both have to be doing it.
Yes.
And that's when you come together. And that's a beautiful thing. So anyway, that's my take on it and how I understand it and see it.
Absolutely. And this, I tell people the same too. You've got to be on your path. When you're on your path, you're not going to miss the things that are meant for you. But it is easy to veer off our path or not even get on it. People do that all the time because of fear. And this is where karma can turn into fear, right? Because your karmic path. So for me, let's use me as an example, since we're already talking about my karma is physical karma 7/7, and I've had to learn, or I've had to heal my heart from many many different things. And as I was going through that, I couldn't even fathom, like, how could I ever love again or be in a relationship again? It's so unsafe. Like, it's unsafe to my core. Like, right? I'm like, I don't think I could ever. I mean, it's not that I don't love people, but to go through something like that again is just not even an option in my reality. And you can't force yourself to heal, right? So
doesn't work like that.
No, it was a very long journey for me, but I got to this point where I am in life now, and now with all the understanding that I have is, oh, I haven't met the divine soulmate yet. Well, duh, that makes sense. Everybody else before him was, horrible to me. So I haven't met him yet, and him and I are actually very similar, and that relationship doesn't come with heartache. But I mean, there's a lot more that I understood. I'm just giving you like little snippets here. But for me, it really has been this journey of understanding that. Having said that, I haven't met him yet. I can energetically feel, right, that this person exists. I don't know where he is, who he is. I don't know any of that. But I know this person exists. And so am I on dating apps? No. Am I out there actively trying to meet somebody? No, that's a very manual thing to do. the easy, effortless thing to do is to connect to creator, source, and be like, hey, source, creator, me here, when it's divine timing, please bring this person into my life.
Right.
That's effortless.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's a really important point, because I don't want anybody on here plenty of people are on dating apps. It's not a bad thing. It's just, it's not really the easiest way to do it. The easiest way to do it is to trust in God, source, universe, whatever you want to call it. We all have different words for it. And again, that's trusting. I trust you to tell me when. I trust you to bring this to me, because that's how it works.
Yeah.
When I'm manually doing it, it's going to be a lot more difficult. It's going to be a totally different journey that way.
Yes. And when you're manually manifesting, remember, you're going to manifest from where you are. So I get a lot of people coming to me who are completely emotionally unavailable, and they want to be in a relationship. I'm like, okay, but you can't even, you can't even connect to your own emotions. And now you're going to bring somebody else in who can't connect to their emotions.
You're going to attract what you have.
Exactly. And that's a lot of what happens, so I warn people about manifesting. Yes, you can manifest. And I see in soul contract charts, some people are phenomenal manifestors. They think it and it's there. It doesn't mean it's always in their highest good.
Mm-hmm. Not always the best thing for them.
Yep.
Yeah, that's very true. And there's something, it's so interesting about manifestation and the magnitude or magnetism we have towards the things that we want. Again, this goes back to, what do I want, or what is in the best for me? Mm-hmm. And that's where the trust from divine comes from, and trusting that that's where you're going to get your highest and best energy. People, relationships, anything that's created or manifested in your life is coming from there, not from your desire. Not that it's bad to desire. You can want and you can desire and you can manifest. People do it all the time. It's a beautiful gift. And we are lucky that we're able to do it, because we all are.
Yeah.
We can all gravitate things to us that we want.
Absolutely.
But the key in my mind and how I understand it is, when you're manifesting, you ought to lend a little trust in what really is meant to be manifested for you in your life. And that's really leaning on the divine, universe, God, source, creator, again, whatever you call it.
Right. And that's the key to everything, is leaning in on the divine and having your own connection, whatever that is, because there's so many different ways to connect. There's not any one way to do it.
Mm-hmm.
But that is truly the key to everything.
Surrender.
Yeah.
Surrender. That's how I see it. It's just surrender. And it's not easy to do, guys, because we didn't come here thinking that that's how it works. In fact, we came here thinking that it's something entirely different. But once you can understand that it is okay to surrender and to allow that, man, things do come easier, don't they?
They do. They do. And I think, we actually had this conversation at coffee. What does surrender mean? Because people say that to me all the time.
A negative.
I don't know.
It's like karma.
Means.
It's a word that means.
Well,
go ahead.
I think, I don't know. It might mean different things to different people, or they literally could not understand what that means. Like, what do you mean surrender? Like, quit my job? How am I going to pay my bills? Right.
They might view it as because when I used to think of the word surrender, it used to mean give up, surrender, just surrender.
Right. But give up what?
Right.
Okay. And so what it is the way I can explain it is, what I find most people do is they resist what they came here to do. They're literally, okay, so let me put it in a different perspective. People come to me and say, I don't like my soul contract. How can I change it? And I'm like, you don't even know what your soul contract is. Like nobody says I don't like my soul. I mean, that's not a thing to say, because when you're in your soul contract, literally your divine will, you're going to have the most amazing life. If your life is not the most amazing, it's probably because you're resisting your soul contract.
Right.
Why would you change it? You don't want to change it. You actually want to get on your path.
Right.
And this is the concept that people don't understand. So I think when you say surrender, I use the word, you need to step into your soul's path. Right? Because people don't always understand what they need to surrender, because they don't realize they're in resistance.
Right. Well, that's what I guess, to me, I totally hear what you're saying. To me, surrender is trust, allow, accept, surrender, lean into just stop trying so hard.
Yeah.
Lean into it. Let it guide you, because that's what you are used to doing. You just in this body, in this life, think that you have to do it manually.
Right.
And
Right.
that's not how you were. That's not how it's designed.
Right. Well, that plus this is where people's karmic fear starts to kick in, which is a very real thing, right?
Absolutely.
And a lot of people have self-worth issues. People have insecurities. Some people have extreme fear. Like these are real karmic frequencies I see. And so when you have that to bump up against, it's a very real thing. So again, not to go so woo-woo and say, oh, just
Right.
it doesn't exist.
No, it's easy to say. It's
right.
hard
It's
to do.
there. And for some people, it is very difficult. Some people came here and they feel extreme disempowerment their entire life. So they were raised with neglect, abuse, narcissists. I mean, these are very real things for people. And people like that, they're actually the dragons, meaning they're the ones in extreme, they carry this power to them, but they don't realize it. And the first thing they need to do is realize, wait a second, I'm the dragon. I'm the one with the power. And then the next step is not to allow other people to disempower them.
That's huge.
It is huge, you know? And actually, I just put out a video this morning. I don't know if you had a chance to see it, but I said, why you keep attracting narcissists from an energetic perspective. And it's because people that carry this 9 frequency, which is the dragon, they'll either show up as the victims or the abusers, because the abusers are also dragons. And I'm just talking about the 9 frequency. I mean, this can happen outside of this context too, but a dragon is going to attract another dragon. So the abusers are going to attract the victim.
Right.
But the victim also has dragon energy.
Right.
And they can, usually
They can flip-flop a little bit.
they can flip-flop. And usually the abuser is there to show the victim how powerful they actually are.
To step into the power.
To step into their power.
Not to abuse, but to step into power.
Right. You have to use the power with integrity. The people that misuse their power, they become the abusers.
Yeah, well, that makes perfect sense. Again, because it can go either way.
Yep.
And that's where you can get stuck.
Yeah.
And relive it again and again and again too. And I agree. This is not to discount anybody's life scenario. These lives that we live and the things that come into them are hard. They're difficult. They're not easy to navigate. And so it's very easy to say, oh, just surrender, just trust. Yeah, it's really easy to roll off the tongue. But when it comes down to it, when you're really struggling in life and you're having situations that are really challenging for you, it's easy to get stuck in that. And that's why it's so important to, like you said, have a relationship independent of anything else. It's only you and your own connection that can accomplish the power to do this for yourself. And that's personal. That's totally you and you alone with the divine and finding that path and getting on your path. And, we don't always stay on our path. We deviate. We get on our path and then we get off of our path. And then we find our path again and then we get off it again. That's just how this works.
Yep.
Nobody's always on their path. We have these experiences for a reason. It's designed that way.
Yeah.
It's just so powerful to me. I honestly, all I can say is that I'm grateful that I feel like I've at least discovered that I have a path,
We all have a path.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'm grateful that I actually understand that's a real thing.
Yeah. And some people, their path is meant to be like going in a circle. Like they feel like they're going in a circle in life. And it's this 15 frequency. And it shows up in people's charts and they come to me and they're like, I don't know, I'm just going in circles. I'm not getting anything done. And I'm like, well, no, actually, that's part of your path is to go in circles to discover who you are. And that could be really frustrating for them. But I think to validate somebody and say, your soul actually came in here to have this experience and that's okay for you, right? It really empowers people to be like, you know what? Yeah, maybe I've had 5 different careers and for me, that's okay. For them, it is okay.
Mm-hmm. Because that's the path that they're meant to be on.
Yeah.
And that's okay. Well, again, it's also just accepting and allowing because you can choose how you want to experience it. Can it be painful or can it be perfectly great and fine and lovely? I mean, that's just, again, these are choices we make. Happiness and love is a choice. You can either be afraid and be in pain, or you can feel love and you can be grateful. I mean, there's a big difference. whatever it is you have.
Right. Yeah. And I think this is where it comes from, to connecting to source, creator, universe, again, whichever word you want to put on it. But when you feel connected, you don't feel lonely. You don't feel fear. You don't feel disconnected. Right. So this is the piece that I find is missing in most people's existence, is their connection to themselves, to source, to their higher self. And so they seek these things in external factors outside of themselves. And that is the wrong place to go. This is how we end up in karmic relationships.
That's not where you find it, period.
No, that's not where you find it.
You can't find it there.
No.
The only place you find it is inside with you. It all starts with you. It has to start there. That's how it works. So when people come to you and they say, like you said, you kind of laugh, I'm sure you get things that it's easy for you to find it easy for you to understand, but somebody not to understand as they're looking at this. But what are some of the things that you find happening as people do soul contracts with you? When they come and they learn, okay, this is my purpose. I have now an awareness of this because it's come out in my chart and I have an understanding of this. What do you typically find? I mean, I know there's no typical, but what have you found people do with that? Do they tend to want to step onto the path and their purpose, or do they, what kind of responses do you get?
I get the gamut, right? So some people, I've done readings for them and it literally changed the trajectory of their entire life, where they on the spot pretty much quit what they were doing and just really stepped into their spirituality. It was almost like they just needed a stranger to validate their deepest thoughts that they haven't expressed to anybody else.
Right.
And then they were like,
they were empowered.
They were so empowered. So I've seen it all the way from that to all the way probably 1 year out the other. Because I think it depends where you are in life. It depends on so many factors, your own connection. And this is when I do one-on-one readings with people, but I also have this digital reading. And in this sense, this is where I'll email people their chart, I'll put it together, and then they go through recorded videos that I have that explain every single frequency in their chart. Tammy, the testimonials I get from that are mind blowing, because I don't interact with these people, but I got one this morning and it was literally right before I came here. I didn't have a chance to respond to her. And this girl, she posted on my Instagram, like one of the posts, just a public comment. And she's like, I got your chart, my chart from you the other day. I went through everything. It was mind-blowing, life-changing. You answered all my questions I didn't even know I had. Everything makes so much sense now. And they're just so grateful.
Yeah, clarity.
And
validation. I remember you said that was the one thing that stood out for me, because when you did my chart, again, this was years ago now, but I said, oh my gosh, I've heard that. I know that. And you said, well, that's great. That it's just more validation for you. So maybe you should start listening.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Or, another question I get often is people ask me, well, how's this the same or different to like human design or numerology or different readings? And
this particular modality of the sound frequencies, you mean?
Yeah.
Okay.
And so it's not like it's its own unique thing, but people that come to me that have gotten readings from others, and then I do their reading, they're like, oh my God, like I heard the same exact thing almost word for word in my human design chart, or my this reading or that reading. And I'm like, okay, how many more signs do you need?
Right. Well, that's what's so funny. It's true. Yeah. It's funny. When I first started going down this path, I was doing all kinds of different readings about different things. And of course, the same messages keep coming up. When you're ready to hear them, they're there for you if you're listening. And so that's the beautiful gift behind it, is these are just validations for you to say, do you hear me yet? That's yourself and your soul connecting with divine, saying, okay, I'm going to say it again. Here's a repeat of what you heard over there and what you heard over there. So the more you have that, not that you have to do it again and again, you don't. If you just choose to listen, you'll understand it better, more quickly.
Yeah. And that's the acceptance that you're talking about.
Right. It's not easy for people to do it.
If it were only easy for people to do it.
Right? I know, right? It would change. Well, and again, like you said, I feel like it's getting easier. I do feel like everybody has said on so many different, in so many different ways, the world is shifting. People are waking up. The veil is getting thinner. People are more open than they have been in the past. And that's a really beautiful thing because it's only going to help us as souls to work together because we are all connected. We're all part of this together. So either you can accept it or you can reject it, but it's a lot easier to accept it.
Yeah.
It's a lot more harmonious for everybody.
Yep.
So, anything else, any other things that you want to share or that you do? I know you do these soul contracts. There's other things that you do though, too. I know that you've started doing, again, there's different ways to connect with source, God, creator, universe, whatever you want to say. Talk about some of that. Cause I know this has been sort of a new thing that you've done in your practice and it's been life transforming for so many people as well. Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. So for the last year or so, just actually a little bit over a year, I've been practicing a very particular energy healing work. And this actually leads into what I was about to say, because the next question most people say is, well, how do I heal? Right? How do I heal out of the karma and how do I step into my soul's purpose? So this work, again, it's so fascinating. All the best things in life find us, right? So this work was reintroduced to me by Katie, who we both know. And there's a whole story of how this work came to Katie, and I'll let her tell you, when she's on your podcast.
She's going to be on in a couple weeks, actually.
Good. But the very first class that she taught of teaching practitioners how to do this work, I was in her class. And mind you, at this moment in time, I was actually practicing a different healing modality. And I was already doing healings with my clients. But then I took this class with Katie, and this work is called Connecting to the Creator Through Prayers of the Soul. And so Katie channeled all of this in.
Again, that's how it comes in. It's channeled.
Yep. And so we do this work. It's a 4-day intensive, and it ended on Monday night. And Tuesday morning, Tuesday I had 2 clients, and both of them were in for healing sessions. And again, they signed up for this other healing modality I was doing. And I go to sit down at my computer and I'm logging on, and all of a sudden, again, this was palpable. This energy comes in through the side and almost hits me. And I'm like, what just happened? And the energy was like, you're not doing this work anymore. You're attuned. This is what you're doing. This is it.
You're shifting now.
I was like, okay. I called Katie. I told her what happened. This is literally 2 minutes before my client comes on Zoom. We're talking 5 minutes. I called Katie.
What am I going to do?
And she's like, go with it. She's like, the energy came to just go with it. Trust it. I'm a very trusting person, very accepting. So I did. And one of my clients that day, her name is Ivory. We're still connected. She has such a profound experience. This is over a year ago.
Wow.
She had such a profound experience from that healing session. Like I said, we're still in touch. And she's I remember she emailed me later that day. She's like, my son came home and he said, Mama, what's different about you? I can feel you're different. Her son felt the shift in her energy. So I was like, okay, this is it. We're doing this. We're doing this. And so I kept, doing this work. And one of the messages that came to me was I used to do this work when I was a part of the Essene group. And again, I don't know if people know who the Essenes are, but they were an ancient sect of people, mystical sect of people back from the biblical days. And they just kind of, lived in their own little society on the outskirts. And I was one of the teachers there practicing and doing this work. And so when this came to me, it was funny because I told Katie, I said, hey, Katie, I got this knowing that this is connected to the Essenes. And she was like, what'd you say? And so I repeated myself. She's like, no, I heard what you said. She's like, but I never told you that. And I'm like, no, you didn't. That came to me during one of the sessions. Yeah. And again, it was really cool for me to get this validation from her because she had that knowing, but that just wasn't part of our
shared it with you.
Curriculum. Yeah, she hadn't shared it or whatnot. It was so, it was fascinating how it came to me. Again, this is something I used to practice before. And so my soul was it was just attuned to it already. And it was just this reawakening in this lifetime. You're remembering it. Yeah.
Wow.
And so the healing sessions are powerful. I do them one-on-one, but really the monthly group sessions is what I love to do with my clients, because every month we have a different theme. The theme in January is awakening our latent talents and stepping deeper into our soul's purpose, which is what everybody needs that.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. For sure.
Yeah.
That's what this is all about.
Yes.
Finding your soul purpose so you can feel happy and joyous
Yeah.
and have meaning in your life.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
Wow. That's amazing. So how can people find you? What is the easiest way for people to find you to be able to access all these amazing resources and gifts and readings that you do?
Yeah. No, wonderful question. So my website is yoursoulscontract.com, and souls has an S in the end, right? So yoursoulscontract.com. And then I'm all over social media, Instagram, TikTok, and my handle there is soul_contracts_practitioner.
Mm-hmm. And she posts all kinds of really cool stuff, you guys. I love seeing her stuff. And she has quite a following. People are hearing her message.
It's been a wonderful journey. Yes.
Yeah, I know. Thank you so much for being here. I just love you and cherish you. And I love that you've been a big part of my own spiritual awakening and a piece of my journey, and continue to be. It's so fun to be able to share it all with you. And I love that you're here sharing your gifts and how people can hear this. So thank you.
It's an honor. Thank you.
Thank you all for being here with us today on Tammy Tuesday, the podcast of Life, Love, and Purpose. Sending all of you lots of love and light. And remember, life, love, purpose. It all begins with you. Peace out.